What's up, guys? Welcome to BFF Report. I'm your host, Mike B, aka Phony. Got your background, flashy, very distracting, right? Anyways, today we're gonna be taking a look at a game called Crysis 3, single player and multiplayer. Let's check it out. One of the first things you're likely to notice when you get into Crysis 3 is that the FOV is a little too tight. Amongst other things that you probably want to tweak before you get in here, which there are lots of options for you to do so, but unfortunately some of the more important things are left out. Or rather, they were in during beta and then they were removed for some reason. Regardless of why they did it, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that Boulder from Crytek himself has actually put out the Crysis 3 CVAR configurator. Very similar to the configurators we got in previous Crysis, Crysis I. And it does everything that you'd want it to do. Borderless windows, disable depth of field, and of course, your field of view. If you want to go check it out, I've actually created a link for it, mikeb.it/Crysis3 configurator, all lowercase. Go check it out and have fun with it. The setting of Crysis 3 takes place in New York again, right? This time we're following up on the Crysis 2 timeline, except for we're 20-something years later. You, playing Prophet, or whatever's left of Prophet, you have to play to figure this one out, are essentially on your way to the skinning lab. And again, I'm not quite sure how it's gonna work out with the way that Prophet's actually kind of built. When along comes an old friend, this one Psycho, without his suit, as you can see, and of course, he's aged a little bit, but still got a little bit of Psycho in him. Now, you will be introduced to a few other main characters, but for the most part, the casting is actually a little bit light in this one. It's kind of a small rebel force versus Cell, which is, mega corporation bent on world domination through technology, and the Ceph, an alien master race bent on, world domination through, I guess, destruction. But that's enough about story. Let's talk a little bit about gameplay. Now, I've already actually beaten the game on the hardest difficulty level, but that actually, it's a little bit different the way that Crysis handles difficulty, in my opinion, versus other games. I mean, I do consider myself to be fairly adept at using keyboard mouse for FPS. Terrible with controllers. But any game that allows you to utilize a stealth mechanic almost at will is really just challenging your patience and tactical approach to different situations than how well you can no-scope 360 headshot people. You see, I beat the game in about 7.5 hours. Of that 7.5 hours, I was actually stealth for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Obviously, there was very few situations where guns blazing was the best option, but I could definitely vouch for it having lots and lots of very, very suspenseful, and just lots of times you're pinned down. They know roughly where you're at. They're searching, they're throwing EMPs, throwing grenades, and your stealth ability only lasts so long before it needs to be recharged. And those of you guys who are playing on the harder difficulties, you guys know this to be true, but anytime you are within line of sight of the enemy, doesn't matter if they're not even looking at you, you could be so far away, they will see you on the harder difficulties. If there's like a tiny little sliver of an opening between crates, if you're exposed, they will see you. So stealth play is extremely important, if not absolutely necessary, when you play on the harder difficulty settings. But if you really feel like playing balls out, guns blazing, feel free to go to the easier settings and just strap on some nano armor and just go to town. But if you play on easy and you beat the game in 3.5 hours, you have no room to bitch. Now, that being said, the game should last the average gamer about 5 to 6 hours, which is completely acceptable, if not just slightly above the norm for a non-RPG first-person shooter. Now, let's go ahead and cover some of the basic nanosuit abilities, as well as the visor and, of course, the compound bow, the Predator. Everybody knows that 2013 is basically the year of the bow. All of these games are coming out this year that has a bow of some sorts. I was personally hoping for the Horseman's Pick to get a little bit of recognition this year, but it's always 2014. And one of the first things you're probably going to notice is that maximum speed is gone. They've actually, they've narrowed it down to a handful of abilities. The more important ones are going to be Nanovision, which I used very, very infrequently. Maximum armor, which was great for EMPs and grenades, but for the most part, I kind of opted for stealth a little bit more often. And again, with the Predator bow not breaking stealth, it pretty much made this combination extremely invaluable in almost any situation. You also have the visor, which allows you to mark targets on the battlefield as well as ammo caches, and you can hack things, for example, hack minefields, so that when enemies walk over them, it triggers for them and not for you. You can also hack turrets, and for a limited time, they'll actually be on your side until they eventually shut down. But in order to do this, you have to play this little mini game, which you're going to be doing a lot. Now, there are modules. There's a module that you can unlock that will allow you to, that actually will do some of these points for you. So it just basically shortens the mini game up a little bit. But the visor is pretty much standard. Anytime you go into a fight, you're going to pull this thing out, and you're going to mark everything. There's been plenty of times where I've accidentally walked into a minefield because I didn't pull this thing out and mark everything and hack things that needed to be hacked before walking through them. Now, speaking of modules, we have a ton here. All these do is enhance certain abilities, even things like your mini map, right? So you could enhance your run speed, how long you're stealth for, you could enhance how much damage you do whenever you punch someone in the face, right? How quickly you could jump, or how quickly you could actually stealth kill somebody. There's so many different things you can unlock here. As you can see, I only have a couple that are unlocked, and of course that are maxed out. And the reason why, again, is because these 4 modules were the best fit for the hardest difficulty. I didn't really need anything else. Sure, I could have unlocked the hacking module and made my life a little bit easier, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to swap these things out, which you can do on the fly if you want. But in terms of being maxed out, you see that there is a prerequisite here to upgrade it to the highest level, and all you have to do is just perform whatever that prereq is, and your module will automatically upgrade itself. Now, if you're going for a stealth build, you notice all the stealth ones are merely be stealth near somebody for a certain amount of time. I did this about mid-game here. All I did was just basically follow around a couple enemies, and that's how I got my gold stars. Pretty easy. Now, in terms of weapon customization, which is a huge thing nowadays, we love to take weapons and kind of tailor them to our own personal needs or wants, and of course, the needs of the situation or the battle at hand. They allow you to do all this stuff on the fly. You could do it right in the middle of a fight, stealth, hit X, pull this thing up. You got a nice little GUI here to work with, and you can swap out. For example, the compound bow will allow you to swap out to how far you pull back to your draw weight, as well as the type of arrows that you're shooting. You see that you have the quantity of ammunition that's available to you stated right there, so you know if you're switching to some specific explosive ammo or something, you only have a couple shots to do it with. It's a very simple and intuitive system that allows you to just basically modify things however you want. And what's really great too is it actually adds so much complexity and just variety in the number of weapons that are already in the game. There's like 30 plus something weapons in the game. Plus you have alien weapons you can pick up, which by the way, I don't think during my entire gameplay session, every time I picked up a Ceph weapon, I never thought to hit X to see if I could modify it somehow. There are secondary fire modes for most of the alien weapons as well as most of your standard weapons. So feel free to hit the 2 key every time you pick up a weapon to see if there's something else that it could do. Now, if you're watching this video, not just listening to it in the background, you guys have seen so many different environments to play in. They've done a really good job, considering that majority of this game takes place inside the Liberty Dome, or whatever's left of it, or whatever you want to call it. You would think that it would be just an urban jungle. Well, they've done, again, a fair job of introducing several different varieties of this urban jungle, as well as just making you feel like you're in a completely different space, wide open, tight and enclosed, running through demolished buildings, lots of underground stuff. So they've done their job in terms of giving us variety. You don't feel like you're playing in the same space over and over again for 7 hours. I also want to speak on level design in terms of progression. So we're used to single player campaigns being very linear. We go from point A to point B through this little tunnel, right? Or something like that, where you can't really explore. There's no sandbox elements. Crysis 1, you had a lot of very sandboxy kind of exploration type elements that were in place. Also with Crysis 2, unfortunately, they kind of narrowed it down to the point where it felt extremely linear. In Crysis 3, you have a little bit of both. Outside of some of the elements that are obviously going to feel very linear when you're riding shotgun in a vehicle, for example, the majority of level design seems to look like think of it like an egg. You have a top and a bottom, but you also have kind of this expanded area in the center. Sure, you're going to end up at that point, which is your POI, right? Your designator, where you need to go to complete the mission. But there's multiple ways to go and achieve this. And of course, side missions will sometimes pull you off into these other areas. Now, in terms of the quality of the graphics, everything you're watching today was filmed in 720p. As a matter of fact, I did an entire Let's Play series that's going to be released on my YouTube channel, /AKMikeB. Go there, check it out, starting probably tomorrow. And I recorded the entire thing in 720p, slightly above medium spec, just below high spec. And there's 2 reasons for it. 1, having 7.5 hours of 1080p footage is a lot of hard drive space. And 2, my 560 Ti was just basically buckling under the amount of pressure that this game was putting on it. So if you guys have a really high-end spec, then you guys should have no problem running this thing 60 frames per second at 1080p, at probably at least high, but definitely not anything too extreme beyond that. Which, in a twisted sort of way, kind of adds to the replayability. I mean, how many times do you guys reinstall older games that you have and crank them up to the maximum spec and then just never play them again because you just want to see if your system will run it? Which I guess we should actually call reinstallability or something. It's kind of what the game Crysis is known for to begin with, so it's kind of nice to see them going back to, the roots. Now, without spoiling anything, I will tell you that the ending was a pleasant surprise. I actually thought it was quite good. I was a little miffed at the Mass Effect 3 ending. I think I've made that quite clear several times. You guys are probably getting tired of it, but I want to tell you guys that about halfway through this game, I started getting that kind of feeling that I might run into this kind of problem at the end, which is one of the reasons why I actually fought it all the way through to the end, because I wanted to make sure that if the ending fucking sucked, I would tell you guys, which would probably stop you guys from buying this game. I can tell you right now, the game ending did not suck. work. And if you're halfway through the game, they start telling you to run to the light beam, just try your best to suppress that PTSD, because I'm telling you, the payoff is gonna be worth it. Multiplayer is a bit funky. It's funny. You play this entire single-player campaign feeling like just a beast, right? Stealthing everywhere, one-shotting people with a compound bow, and just being amazing. And then you get multiplayer, and of course everybody has all the same abilities. Now, here's the thing. I didn't really enjoy playing multiplayer using all of my suit's abilities. I kind of felt that it took away from kind of that raw, usually when you play a first-person shooter multiplayer, you're more or less not endowed with all these crazy super abilities. You know, activating, you know, armor or stealth or whatever. So I kind of found using these abilities in multiplayer a little gimmicky. Now, this is obviously my personal opinion. Some of you guys are going to thoroughly enjoy this. But what I liked the most is I found a Cell versus Rebel a server, and I went in and played. This is kind of a classic mode, right? You don't have crazy abilities, but you do have access to all the weapons and all the mods and all the things you could do. You have all your same basic loadouts, which a game, of course, has progression where you unlock various customization options for your weapons. You have a ton of different gameplay types, lots of different progression opportunities for achievements. The game definitely gives you a lot to do in multiplayer. But playing on this Cell versus Rebel server was really, really great. Again, you have access to, you know, the compound bow, which I loved here in multiplayer. As you can see, it's a little overpowered. I can aim center mass and one-shot people with it. You can't adjust the draw weight like you can in single player, which is kind of a bummer. But at the same time, if you're one-shotting everybody, it doesn't really matter anyways. Now, outside of Battlefield, I haven't really played a lot of modern shooters. I don't play Modern Warfare 3 or 4 or 15 or whatever the hell they're at right now. So I can't really compare it to that. What I did notice is on this CVR server, I didn't have regenerative health. So that was kind of an added bonus. I like the fact that I get shot and now I'm bleeding. I don't just sit in a corner and magically get all my wounds just magically stitch themselves. So that element I enjoyed. And then of course they have a kill cam where they show you a little kind of mini highlight when you die, so you could see, you know, that you got shot in the nuts or you got shot in the ass. I mean, personally, I could probably get shot in the ass with an arrow and still be able to perform my duties, albeit it'll be painful, but I should still be able to, you know, help the team. But then at the end of the match, you get a highlight reel showing all of your kills in succession while it loads the next match. It's kind of nice. So overall, I had a blast playing single player. Not a lot of replay value there because it's not like an RPG where you can go through and make different decisions, do things a little bit differently. The only difference is that, again, difficulty level. The easiest is you go out, use nano armor or not, right? Take a bunch of bullets to the face and just have kind of a superhero type persona. And then on the harder difficulties, you're gonna be playing a little bit more like Thief, where, you know, if you get discovered, typically you die. You can't get out of it, but it's gonna be a little tough. But for the most part, you're gonna be playing very stealthy. Your replayability is probably gonna lie in multiplayer, where you could choose to play, you know, with your suit abilities, or you could play classic mode. I definitely enjoyed classic mode a bit more. What's nice about Crysis multiplayer is it's not tacked on. It's not something that didn't exist for the entire franchise, and all of a sudden they just slapped it on there. It feels good. It feels really good. Just try really hard while you're playing, not to get distracted by some of the pretty posters. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Feel free to leave comments below or on Twitter, Facebook, or even Reddit. Thank you very much for watching, and next week, I know I did say that I was gonna do Dust 514, but I'm waiting for things to kind of develop a little bit further on that before I jump in. Plus, it takes a long time to get up some skill points, man. I want to buy the boosters, but I don't at the same time. It's gonna let it kind of build up. Stay tuned to youtube.com/AKMikeB. I have a Let's Play of this game coming up starting tomorrow, and, or was it Friday? One of the two, Thursday, Friday, you'll see. And then, of course, well, Donkey, Trials of Tuesdays, Go Tets. We have a recap of that coming up very, very soon. I think the results of that are gonna be very, very surprising to those of you guys who are following it. And that's it. I'll see you guys next week.